Okay. Good evening, everyone. We're going to wait for one more minute to see if other people connect, and then we will start our webinar for today. Okay. So in the meantime, I want to make sure, are you able to see my screen? You can also write it down in the comments section. Oh, there you go. Yes, or also react. That works perfectly well for me. Thank you. Amazing. Okay. So it's already 4 p.m. Hi, everyone, again. I hope you're doing really, really good. So today, our webinar is going to be focused on psychological flexibility, a new way to respond to scheme picking, urges, and thoughts overall. My name is Manuela. I'm a clinical psychologist. I have a master's degree in third generation therapies, and I will be presenting today our topic. Okay, so first, I want you to have a little bit more information regarding what's our agenda or like the schedule for today. So, first, I want to introduce myself and, of course, the ACT approach, which is like the acceptance and commitment therapy approach. It's the therapy that I use in a lot of my intervention processes, and it has been proven to be very effective. So, we'll get more into some of the details later on. Also, we are going to talk about the myth of control and what happens whenever we try to fight or control our thoughts, the urges themselves. Then experiential avoidance and why we struggle. I don't want to get like too technical right now because I will like explain furthermore. So like just stick to the titles and then I will be sharing more details. Then we will talk about our key concept for today, which is psychological flexibility and the main pillars of psychological flexibility, why this is so important, and why it's a skill that helps us overcoming BFRBs. Mm, then we will get into more details regarding the three pillars that we will be talking about today. So to share some of the background, there are six main pillars, but we are going to break it down into another session as well. So we will be working today with the first one, which is self as context, and we are going to use a chessboard metaphor to explain better how this works and the main goal of learning how to be the observer of whatever happens within your mind, like thoughts, emotions, memories, and overall, like these internal experiences. Then we will talk about the second pillar, which is diffusing from your thoughts. Basically, how to get unhooked from the thoughts that you like go over and over and over again and like somehow take away most of the energy. And we will also like be using a very specific strategy, which is called the mind trains technique. And then we will talk about the third pillar, which are like the values and how they are your compass whenever you are trying to do meaningful actions in order to create like this life that you want to create and that's meaningful to you, fulfilling to you. And the difference, of course, between the values and the goals. And last but not least, our conclusion about like all of that we have spoken about today. So let's get started. Oh, and before we get started, I'm sorry. I just wanted to let you know that at the end of this session, we will have the opportunity to answer some of the questions that you may have. So please write them down on the chat. You don't need to raise your hands. It's just like a matter of leaving them registered so that we are able to have them and start responding to them. And I will share like some other information about Skimpic at the end. Okay. So first of all, who am I? As I said, like to me, it's very important that you're able to get to know the person behind the screen. So I am Manuela. I live in Colombia and I am a clinical psychologist. psychologist, I'm sorry. I have a master's degree in intervention in third generation therapies. So, third generation therapies, or like third wave CBT, are a group of psychological treatments that emphasize in acceptance, mindfulness, and context over merely changing dysfunctional thoughts. So, I have been working as well, like with specialized evidence-based protocols for BFRBs, but my main approach is the acceptance and commitment therapy, which belongs to the third generation therapies. So, what is the acceptance and commitment therapy? So, it's also called ACT because it's an action-oriented psychotherapy that teaches people to accept difficult thoughts and emotions rather than struggle against them. And it also fosters psychological flexibility, which is a concept that we will be talking about later on. Um, so basically, ACT focuses on developing psychological flexibility through six core processes, but today we will be speaking mainly of three. Um, so it combines mindfulness skills with commitment to values-based actions, which helps reduce like needless suffering. So this doesn't mean that it eliminates pain overall, because pain is part of life, discomfort is part of life, but it helps like in order to manage better anxiety, depression, chronic pain, discomfort, and overall live a more meaningful life. Okay, so what I want you to get from this approach is that ACT isn't about eliminating urges or gaining perfect control over them. It's about changing the way you relate with these urges, with your thoughts and overall sensations, so that they can be present without dictating what you do. Like they are present, but they are not controlling you. So from that place, you practice choosing actions that move you toward the kind of life you want, even when discomfort shows up. So, yes, basically, urges may show up, but they don't get to be in charge. What is indeed in charge is, well, our values, your values. Now, the myth of control. So, what happens when we try to control our thoughts? Basically, your brain's job is to generate thoughts non-stop, among other functions, of course, but it predicts, it warns, it remembers, it judges, and connects dots. There are also a lot of intrusive thoughts, but most of this happens without your permission. So just like you cannot decide to hear a sound or not to feel a sensation, you can you cannot decide whether you have a thought or not. Actually, the human brain is estimated to process between like 6,000 to 70,000 thoughts per day. So um, I want you to do a quick experiment. Let's do a quick experiment. This should be very easy for you. So I'm going to ask you right now not to think about a pink elephant. So you have never seen a pink elephant before. It should be easy. So please focus. I want you to focus on not thinking about it. What are you thinking about right now? Try to focus again. So let me see if there's a comment section in here. Can someone? Okay. Can you please put a thumbs up or a heart if you were thinking about the pink elephant? There you go. A lot of pink elephants in the room. Yes, exactly. So this is exactly what happens whenever we are trying to think about, I should not be picking, I can, like, I don't want to think about getting rid of this imperfection. I don't want to think about how my face looks or how my skin looks, or I don't want to think about the urges. Basically, suppression creates obsession. So the more you try not to think about something, well, the more you will think about it, the more energy you will be investing on not trying to think about it. Um, which is funny because that's actually something that we try to do a lot with a lot of things, like not only picking, but also like I should not be feeling sad about this. Then now I'm feeling sad and I'm feeling frustrated because I am feeling sad about it, right? So this is something that is very common in several experiences, but right now, like I wanted you to get the example of what happens overall with skin picking. Now, give me a moment. As I said, fighting the urges is what makes them the center of your life. So, if I don't want to think about this, then I must try to distract myself. Why am I trying to distract myself? Or what am I trying to do differently? I'm trying to do this and this and this because I don't want to make this the center of my life. I don't want to make picking the center of my life. Then it backfires, right? Um, Now, I don't know if you have ever heard about the experiential avoidance, but basically, experiential avoidance is it's like the unwillingness to remain in contact with uncomfortable internal experiences. So internal experiences are difficult thoughts, emotions, memories, or bodily sensations that um, lead to active attempts to alter, escape, or suppress them. So, oh, wait, give me a moment. There you go. So, oh, by the way, I will be answering the questions that you have like at the end of the session, like just in case. I just wanted to make sure that it was working. Um, but what does this mean? Avoiding negative experiences, and I'm going to put them like uh between like this quotation marks because they are not negative per se. They're more like experiences that might make us feel discomfort, might make us feel pain. Um, but avoiding them is what actually creates a rigid mindset. Why? Because avoidance teaches the mind that only one internal state is acceptable and everything else is a failure. So, for example, if I pick once, then I failed. I don't know if you have ever thought about this, and you can also write it down in the chat, like, or just like put thumbs up. Mm, oh, the presentation is cut off. Oh, that's weird. Let me check to see. Fix now. Okay. How about now? Is it still cut off? Oh, there you go. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you for letting me know. Um, so I was asking you, and you can write down in the chat or just like put some reactions. Have you ever thought about this? Like, if I pick once, then I've failed. Or, um, because I picked, then all of my progress went down the drain, or I'm back to square one. Or let's do it on the contrary. If I don't have urges, then I'm doing well, right? This is something very common, and it's actually very aligned with that perfectionism or that black or white mindset, which is something that can be definitely like counterproductive because progress isn't always linear. And this is something that we discuss a lot with our clients. Um, and it's the fact that sometimes you might feel like you're doing like this, and then you feel like, I don't know, you picked a little bit, and the process feels like this, but this downward direction doesn't mean that you went back to square one. It means that this is part of the process as well. And the main goal is that you learn to navigate these ups and downs, understanding that they are human and they are part of every single one's process. So, um, what I want to explain in here about like language being trigger, it's the fact that language doesn't just like describe experience. It actually shapes how the nervous system responds to it. So when thoughts like I'm broken, I have no self-control, or I can't tolerate this urge, which belong to the black or white mindset or perfectionism. So when these thoughts show up, the mind often treats them as facts rather than thoughts. Um, that's a process known in acceptance and commitment therapy as cognitive fusion. So basically, these statements signal threat to the body and they increase the urgency and intensify the urges. So while also turning like a specific behavior into a global identity story that fuels shame. So when an urge is labeled as intolerable, the system naturally pushes toward like the fastest form of relief, which is often the BFRB itself, right? Because BFRBs usually have like this soothing function or maybe like emotional regulation function. That is what has been making them so reinforced over time. So in this way, um, language becomes a trigger, not because language is negative itself, but because it amplifies threat. Like it narrows perceived options and drives like the automatic behavior. And ACT works by helping people to relate to these thoughts as mental events. Like, for example, um, whenever you think like I cannot tolerate this urge, I need to peak, like act tries to switch to I'm having the thought that I can't tolerate this urge. So this basically creates like a little bit of space between the thought and between the thought, the urge, and the actual behavior, which reduces reactivity and it's also restores choice and control agency over your behavior. Also, I'm going to check here the comments. Give me one moment because I just want to make sure that the presentation is still fixed. Okay, still working. If anything comes up, please let me know. Okay, so why are we talking about all of this? Because psychological flexibility is what actually helps to counteract or like create this strategy that will help handling the picking in a different way, right? So psychological flexibility, it's like the ability to stay present, open up to difficult emotions, and act in alignment with long-term values, even when experiencing stress, fear, or discomfort happens. Mm, it involves adapting to changing circumstances, also shifting perspectives, and persisting in or like changing behavior to suit personal goals. So today we will be talking about three main pillars, but first, like just like to make like a small disclaimer, what we are aiming for is to be able to adapt the urge, um, like adapting to the urge while staying true to your values. So as I said before, this doesn't mean that the urges will go away. This doesn't mean that discomfort will go away because it's part of the human experience. But when when we are able to be present and understand that this doesn't mean that we're not able to have a meaningful life, then that's where the change comes from. So we are going to talk about acceptance, mindfulness, and values. So let's start with the self as context, okay? So basically, the self as context is something or like a paradigm that describes the self as stable, observing container of experiences like thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories, etc., rather than experiences themselves. So this means that we contain these experiences, but we are not defined by them. And right now, I like to do a lot of practical exercises for you to take home and for you to think a little bit more about this. So I want you to close your eyes for a moment. Okay? And we're going to talk about the chessboard metaphor. So I want you to think of your thoughts and feelings as chess pieces on a chessboard. Think of the white pieces as the thoughts and feelings you want. So, for example, confidence, happiness, self-esteem, willingness. And now think of the black pieces as the thoughts and feelings you don't want. Again, these are not negative. These are just like the ones that feel discomforting for you. Okay, so for example, emotions like anxiety, fear, self-doubt, hopelessness, whatever comes up to your mind. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to, well, a minute. I'm going to give you 1 minute to think about these thoughts that you want and these thoughts that you don't want, and try to imagine this chessboard. Hmm? Remember, if you prefer, you can think of the black pieces as also like this is something that I want you to know. Like you can also think of the black pieces as desired thoughts and feelings and the white pieces as undesired ones. Like just make sure that they are like the two different sides of it. Okay. Now, one thing we humans do a lot is try to defeat those undesired thoughts and feelings, right? So in this case, let's talk about the black pieces. We want to get rid of our negative thoughts. We want to get rid of our negative feelings. So basically, we go to war. Hmm. At difficult times in our lives, it looks like we're losing the battle, right? Black pieces knock most of the white pieces off the board. Um, At other times, it also looks like we are winning, right? So we knock many of the black pieces of the board. Hmm. But I want you to look closely at your experience. What happens when you knock those black pieces off the board? Do they stay off forever or do they come back sooner or later? Or do you find that new black pieces take the place of some of the old ones? Right? So it's like a war that rages forever with no end in sight, right? The real problem here is that when we wage this war, we wage it against ourselves. Hmm. When we battle the black pieces, we battle a part of our experience, and we battle a part of ourselves. Hmm. We literally set up a situation where, in order to get on with life, large parts of our actual experience must disappear forever. Hmm? So, this is actually something that carries a very heavy cost. Hmm? We can become absorbed with our internal struggles and disconnected from the outside world and things in life that matter most to us. Hmm? We can become so absorbed with our internal struggles that we don't see the outside world. Hmm? So think about this. And now, what if it's possible to let go of the fight? Hmm? What if you are the chessboard in this metaphor? Regardless on how the war between the black pieces and white pieces turns out, is the chessboard affected or damaged in any way? Or is the chessboard simply an arena where match after match can play itself out? And the board remains solid and intact, ready for whatever comes next. Whatever. Hmm. So, regardless of what happens to this chess pieces, um, What if you could focus your energy on doing what you want, and carrying the positive and negative thoughts with you? So remember that there is a distinction between your thoughts. This is very, very important. Like, there is a distinction between your thoughts and your observer self. Hmm? Think of the observer as being the chessboard, as being you. Hmm? Think of your thoughts and feelings as being the chess pieces. The chessboard carries the pieces, but it's not equal to the pieces. Similarly, you carry your difficult thoughts, you observe these thoughts, but you are not equivalent to them. Hmm? So, have you ever heard this metaphor before? I'm curious. If not, you can you can send me a thumbs up if you haven't heard of it. That sounds weird, but yes. Or also you can, there you go. Oh, okay, so this is the first time you've heard of it. Interesting. Well, you can also leave in the comments if I'm sorry, I'm not able to multitask this much, so I'm sorry, but you can also leave in the comments what you thought about it. But remember, you are the chessboard. You are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, they are just part of you. And that's exactly what we try to do with the self as context. So I want you to know that this is the way that we are stepping back to watch the urge without becoming the urges or without letting them control ourselves. So here is an example on how this shift can look like. A lot of people may think like, I'm always going to act like this. I'm always going to be picking my skin. I will never be able to resist the urge, and how to become a container of them instead of becoming the thoughts. Well, I am thinking I'm always going to act like this. I am thinking that I will not be able to resist the urge. Okay. Now, oh, there you go. Now, our second important pillar, diffusing from your thoughts. So this is actually very related to what we just talked about. And this is the magic of ACT. Like, everything is related, everything is connected. And that's the reason why it's also so functional. So first, like, what is diffusing from your thoughts? Like, this helps people create like the space between themselves and their thoughts, which reduces the impact of distressing or negative thoughts, because instead of viewing them like as absolute truths, or reality or commands, it makes you view them as what they truly are, thoughts, right? So thoughts are just fragments of language. The problem is the way we relate to these fragments of language. So one like key observation here is that, for example, we whenever there's like a lot of skin picking, there are thoughts that are like, I need to pick, I need to get rid of this imperfection, as I said before, which, like, what we try to do with diffusing yourself from the thoughts is that we're trying to encourage you to observe them as just words or mental events. As I said before, I am having the thought that I need to pick. I am having the thought that I need to get rid of this imperfection. So, one key component in here, and something that I like a lot about this approach, and that helped me understand better how to start diffusing from thoughts, because this is something that applies to a lot of aspects in life, is differentiating from looking at thoughts versus looking from thoughts, right? So, why? Because it shifts your focus from being immersed in the content of a thought to observing the process of thinking itself, right? Whenever you're looking at something, you're looking at something that's outside, right? External, and that means that there's like distance between you and whatever you're looking at, right? Whenever you're looking from thoughts, that's like you were looking from, like, using these lenses of reality, and it somehow like reduces the distance between them. And that's the reason why people tend to identify a lot with them. So Again, me being a little bit more practical and like trying to do more exercises that allow you to connect with this, I also brought this tool that we actually have on the app that's very, very useful to try to create like this distance between the thoughts. And it's called the mind train. So what's like the main goal of this? To see your private experiences as mind trains that pass through the station, but that you don't have to get on board into every train that passes by. So, first, like I want you to again imagine that you are standing on a railway platform at a busy station, okay? This platform represents your conscious awareness, the part of you that is capable of simply watching what happens. It is a place of stillness and also it's a place of safety. Now, the trains pulling into the station are your thoughts, your memories, your urges, your emotions. Some trains are bright and colorful. They can be happy thoughts, positive thoughts, positive beliefs in yourself, and some others can be dark, heavy, freight trains. So this can be your worries, or maybe the things that stress you out. Those emotions that are difficult to feel or difficult to connect with. Those beliefs that sometimes like tend to make you struggle with your sense of identity. And there are other trains which are like more fast-moving express trains, um, which could be like fleeting ideas. So normally, when a worry train pulls up, we we don't just look at it. We jump on the tracks, climb into the carriage, and let it whisk us away. Um, and before we know it, we are miles away from the station, lost in the landscape of what ifs, anxiety, sadness, worries, and we aren't on the platform anymore. We're in the thought itself, right? This is common. Why? Because our brain's main function is to protect us. Therefore, if we start thinking catastrophically, then we can somehow prepare ourselves better to deal with this situation. But unfortunately, there is no real threat whenever we are jumping into this worry train. Like our life is not at risk. There are like worries that can go in our daily basis. The thing is that our brain is trying to protect us all the time and it doesn't differentiate between that and being attacked by a lion, basically. So, what's the main goal? The main goal of this exercise is to learn how to stay on the platform. Um, when a thought arrives, it's important that you're able to acknowledge it because you're not going to try to say, like, no, that train doesn't exist. That doesn't work, right? Don't think about the train, right? Don't think about the pink elephant. It doesn't work that way. But it's important that you're able to acknowledge, like, oh, there's the I'm going to fail train again, right? There's the I need to be perfect train again. You watch it pull into the station, but as you see, like as you are able to see the doors open, you can also make the conscious decision of not boarding the train. So you can also wait patiently on the platform until the train eventually pulls out of the station and disappears down the line. Does this mean that you are not going to feel discomfort whenever you are acknowledging the existence of the train? No. Of course, you will be uncomfortable. Of course, you will feel pain, sadness, worry, but you are not going to fuse with it. You are not going to become that pain. And that's where the main difference relies on. So I hope everything's clear until now, right? We're going to go now to our third and last pillar, okay? So, our third pillar are the values, right? Because values are like the compass that help you act aligned with what's truly meaningful for you and the kind of life that you want to build for yourself. So, I'm also going to make like the distinction between values and goals, but first I want you to know like what's the main definition of values, right? So, basically values are they are the central guiding principles that define what is most important, and they provide direction for a meaningful life, right? So, values function as a compass rather than a destination. They enable, they enable people to take committed and purposeful action. They enhance motivation and also they help you to navigate challenges with more resilience, and this is what ultimately fosters psychological well-being. Yes. So, what's the main goal of the values? They provide the why behind the behavioral change that you want to do. Um, why is this important? Because somehow they're like the fuel, right? Like sometimes we're not going to be motivated, sometimes we're not going to have the same energy to do things. And believe it or not, like we cannot rely only on motivation to act. And that's why values are so important because they are what sort of like kick you into do things or push you into do things that even though you don't want to do, you know that are meaningful and that can definitely help you to build that meaningful life. So basically, some example of what a value can look like is I want to be someone who cares for their body, right? This is something that's more like universal, ongoing, like more stable over time. And the main difference between this and goals overall is that goals are like the destination. So values give you direction and the goals are like the destination. So goals can be completed and values are more like ongoing, right? So I'm going to give you an example. Being loving is very different from getting married, right? They offer like a permanent source of purpose, while the values are like something that's more like achievable and momentary. Yes. So, this doesn't mean that values are wrong. Actually, sorry, goals. This doesn't mean that goals are like bad things. Actually, goals are very important because whenever we are trying to live a meaningful life, it's also important to break down the steps so that we can like make them more measurable and also know that not only we are acting aligned to what's meaningful for us, but also we have something that's like more achievable and therefore like whenever we have that sense of reward, then we are more likely to continue like moving towards those things that are truly important or that are like fulfilling for us. So, right now, again, another practical exercise. And I love them because I think that they are truly something that needs to be applied on our daily basis because that's the way that we are able to internalize these practices and this knowledge. I want you to choose three core values to drive your recovery. Like, what are those things that are like going to be universal or ongoing during your process of recovering from skin picking? And then afterwards, I want you to think about one goal that you can have, and please make it a measurable goal because sometimes, like, we say, like, oh no, I'm going to stop picking, and that's it, right? When that's something that's a little bit like huge and it's not like something that's breaking down, therefore, it's going to be like very frustrating trying to achieve that goal when it looks like so far away and so huge. So, I want to break it down. I want you to think about how to break them down into something that's more achievable. Like, for example, I want to change the way I relate to my urges by having more sense of control regarding the decisions I make every time an urge comes up. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes to think about first, values, and second, goals, right? So choose three core values and choose one specific goal that's aligned with it, okay? And of course, if you want to share it on the chat, you can also do so. But it's okay, it's fully optional. Okay, so as I said, it's okay if you don't want to share them on the chat, but I want to know if you were able to think a little bit more about those values that are meaningful for you, and you can just like react. Okay, you can like send hearts or thumbs up or whatever comes to your mind. Okay, awesome. Perfect. And remember that this is just for you. This is just for you to have that compass that's going to be fueling those motivation levels whenever it feels low or whenever you are feeling low. So now, what's our main conclusion? So, first, I want you to understand that pain is just another face of the same coin, and how we respond to it defines our freedom. So, we cannot avoid having discomfort. We cannot avoid having situations that will definitely hurt us or that will definitely like have an impact. But what we can try to do is focus on the way we relate to it, the way we react to it. And this doesn't mean that we're going to be like all positive and yay, my day sucks. No, but it means like you can also try to be more self-compassionate with yourself, understanding that there will be some moments in which you are going to be hurt or in which you are going to be reminded of those things that you don't like or that you are going to feel discomfort because you're having an urge again. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that you are only reduced to this concept or to this uh, day, like bad day or bad thought, bad feeling, bad emotion, bad. It just means it's part of the process. And you are the one that has the power to decide what you are going to do next. And that is something that can definitely be a little bit frightening, but it's also something that can give a sense of relief. So, what I want you to know here is that recovery from skin picking isn't about like the absence of the urges, but about the presence of choice. The path of healing from skin picking is not found in the perfect control of our impulses, but in the expansion of our psychological flexibility. And as we have seen today, the more we fight that pink elephant of an urge, the more power we give to it. So, by moving from a mindset of avoidance to one of like more observation, more awareness, then we realize that, well, we cannot always control the weather of our thoughts or or the waves of an urge, we can always choose how to steer our ship. Hmm? So, by integrating habit reversal training and the COMP model within the framework of acceptance and commitment therapy, we claim our power. So, not by making the urge disappear, but by ensuring that it no longer dictates our actions, it no longer dictates our life. Remember that your thoughts and urges are just like fragments of language. They are parts of your experience, yes, 100%, but they are not the whole of who you are as a person. And success is not defined by a life without urges, but by a life lived with alignment with your deepest values, one conscious choice at a time. Okay? So, this was our presentation. Right now, well, before we move to the questions and answers section, I just want you to know that you can also like check different resources that we have. You can go to skimpic.com. We also offer like these monthly webinars in which you can connect whenever you want to. And we have also Facebook groups, Instagram, TikTok. We have a community section on the app that's also very useful to get to know people's experiences and like overall connect with people in order to not feel so alone because we definitely understand that this can be a lonely journey. So we just want you to know that you are not alone. This is not something that you struggle with all by yourself, and that a lot of people share similar experiences. Um, but it's something that's definitely like you can learn how to handle it and you can learn how to deal with it and live a meaningful life. Okay. So, oh, before we go to this part, here you. Oh, wait. So I have a lot of comments in here that I was not like I didn't see. I love this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and answer some of the questions that you have. So, what's my opinion on finger cuts as tool to keep you from picking at your fingers? And how can ACT work when a person has disabilities like autism, executive functioning challenges, and doesn't seem to care about the damage infections that are caused by picking? Okay, so first, like to answer the first question, I think that finger cuts as a tool to keep you from picking at your fingers are very useful things to like they are very useful. But I think that it's important to also like try different strategies that expose you to like the discomfort itself. Like this is something that you have to do gradually, but it's not something that you do like all at once because it will backfire 100%. Um, but I have like this way of thinking, and it's that you need to use the tools that you have to make your life easier. And if at the beginning of the process or during a long part of your process, you need to just like use the tools that you have available in order to like create more awareness and maybe like understand better like the function behind the picking before exposing yourself to the discomfort that comes with being able to feel the texture in your fingers or maybe in your skin, then use that tool 100%. Like the most important thing right now, and throughout this processes is that you understand that first every process is different and like we need to get to know what works for each person and what's the function behind so that we are able to use like alternative behaviors and competing responsive strategies that will target that specific need. Um, so yes, like I think it's something that works as a tool. It's very useful, but it's also like part of the process, and you need to be able to also like try to gradually expose to the sense of discomfort and understand that you don't need to react to the urges. Like, and well, even if you decide to pick eventually, like the most important thing is that you're making that conscious decision to do so. Like it's not something that you are reacting to, it's something that you're like consciously deciding to do. It's like that is also progress, actually. But we can get more into details later on or in different webinars. Also, how can ACT work when a person has disabilities like autism, executive functioning challenges, and doesn't seem to care about the damage infections that are caused by the picking? So, the thing about acceptance and commitment therapy is that it does need a lot of awareness. And It does have like its limitations because it's not something that will work with all of the populations, especially because of what I say. Like, it's important to be aware that there is something that you want to change. So if that is not like the case, like for example, if there's like this functioning challenges, then it's important to explore other approaches, which is completely valid because I think that there is like no like one size fits all solution for everything. No. And that's the reason why it's important to understand like what you need or how to target like specific conditions depending on your personality or depending on how you function as a person. Now, someone else says that it is much more difficult to see yourself as a chessboard that is unaffected when the wounds, scars on your body remind you that constant inner struggle. And that makes a lot of sense. The chessboard metaphor can feel much harder to access when your body carries like visible reminders of the struggle. Scars and wounds naturally pull attention back into the game, especially because like they trigger emotion, they trigger memory, and of course also a lot of self-judgment. Um, but I think that in those moments, the goal isn't to pretend the scars don't matter or that they're not there or that you are not affected by them, but to notice that even with those reminders present, there is still a part of you that can observe the urge, the story, and the discomfort without having to act on them. Like being the chessboard doesn't mean being numb or untouched. It means you're like, it means allowing the reminders to be there while gently practicing, like not letting them dictate your next move. And that distinction is subtle, but that's where flexibility actually starts. So, yes. Now, um, I see that there are some values in here. So, authenticity, health, connection, relationships, definitely. And one challenge is to go out and do something socially, like not the gym or doctor's appointment. So, yes, I think it's important to acknowledge that there are some limitations and that there are some challenges, but uh, the main goal here, like understanding your values and what actually gives this sense of direction to your life, is knowing that discomfort is part of the process. And not gonna lie, I think it's important as well, like to be able to get to know yourself so much to like in order to understand like what is discomforting, but it's also something that is aligned with what truly matters to you versus something that is discomforting and it's also hurting you, right? Like that's where the difference also comes in. So sometimes due to the skin picking, we isolate ourselves and we are like a little bit ashamed of it. But for example, meaningful relationships are something that help us feel safe, that help us feel loved and cared for. Therefore, it's important to look for different strategies or like more measurable, simple goals that will like get you more close to those things that are truly valuable. Other values I have here: empathy, trust, creativity, and a goal can be I will stop picking for 3 days. I think that that's an achievable goal, but I think that it's also good to break it down a little bit more because have you ever like tried to go like full cold turkey? Like I'm going to stop picking for forever, right? Or like for 3 days, for example. If you have ever tried go, if you have ever tried to go cold turkey, please put your thumbs up on the reaction section. Yes, it happens. And going cold turkey is actually something that doesn't work really well because it can also go very aligned with the black or white mindset, right? Like that perfectionism. So, what happens if you don't stop picking during 3 days? What happens if you had an urge that was like so strong that you were not able to resist and you ended up picking? it's going to be very frustrating, very, very, very frustrating. So we can break down that goal a little bit more to I will stop every time I have an urge. I'm going to take like three deep breaths and I'm going to make a more conscious decision of whether I'm going to pick or not. Or I'm going to reduce my picking episodes for the next following 3 days like I'm going to reduce my episodes to only two picking episodes per day, for example, right? This is something that can be like a little bit more achievable, and then you can escalate and then you can escalate again until the goal is to stop picking for 3 days, right? But it's something that has to be like breaking down step by step, and also understanding that the goal is to be like more compassionate about like with yourself, and also make much more conscious, much more aware decisions that are aligned with your meaningful or fulfilling life. Okay. Now, there are some questions that I'm not completely sure about because I don't have like the knowledge. And whenever this happens, you can also write or ask your questions to our support at skimpic.com customer support team. So they are going to be helping you because I wouldn't be able to say about like the acetyl acetylcholine. I think that's like a cream, right? Like I think that's a cream for the skin, like in order to try to recover from the wounds of pickings. But yes, I wouldn't be able to answer to that question. So if you don't mind, you can like just ask to our customer support team. And also we have one of our team members here, Meryl, and she will be like responding to some of those questions as well on the chat. Okay. Now, how long will the process take to stop picking my cuticles? I have been doing this since I was young. And will hypnosis help? Well, I think that every process is different, actually. And like giving a specific time frame is not something that's very realistic because there are like some processes that like have more deeper like roots. And that's the reason why it's important to also like try to uh, do therapy. Hypnosis is something that even though like can work on some cases, it's not something that's like evidence-based, or like there's not much evidence regarding like how effective it can be. So what I would recommend is for you to try to check like other like evidence-based therapies, like for example, acceptance and commitment therapy, also HRT, which is like habit reversal training, which is something that we have a lot on the app as well. Um, Also, we have a little bit of CBT, 100%. So, yeah, but like to respond to your question, this is something that varies depending on your process. And we need to understand like what's the main function of that behavior in order to see like which strategies are going to work better for you. Is there something on an emotional level that we need to work with, or is there something on a relational level that we need to work with? So it depends from time to time. Now, I bite my nails in my sleep and it wakes me up, but the damage is done. I have tried gloves, tape, and nothing works. Any suggestions? This is actually something very common because a lot of people like tend to do automatic behaviors. So even if it happens in your sleep, it's something that it's actually more common than a lot of people think. Usually we carry with ourselves like the stress that we have throughout the day, like work stress related, or like maybe with our partners or with our family. So something that works really well, and I think that it should be complemented with like maybe trying to use like different tools or strategies, like not only wearing gloves or not only using like tape. Um, is to do like a wind down practice before you go to sleep, right? So, for example, something that works a lot is first like making sure that you're disconnecting from all of these things that can be stressing for you throughout the day, right? Like get away from computers, get away from your phone, get away from um your husband. No, I'm just kidding. But get away from like these things that can be like stressful for you. And try to do like a breathing exercise, like to see like how are you doing, how are you feeling, checking up like which bodily sensations you have, and like try to locate the feelings within and allow yourself to be there for you. Allow yourself to have like this space of containment in order to like somehow leave that baggage behind and like be able to transition to the next day in a more calm state of mind. Yes, this is something that is very helpful. I think that complemented as well, like with maybe like using physical barriers that will allow you to realize, like using band-aids and this, it can complement itself very, very well. Okay. So now I think I'm going to respond to this last question. So, I was wondering if I know my cuticle skin is damaged and ugly, and I truly want to stop the urges. What can I do? It's hard sometimes and unconscious. So basically, like first, as I said, like during the webinar, I think that the most important part is understanding that urges are natural and they are something that may be accompanying you throughout your process and throughout your life. But the way you relate to them is something that it's definitely up to you. So the first thing that we can do in order to start like working towards like that recovery process is building awareness, right? Because sometimes like it's very difficult to catch yourself picking at your skin, right? But when you start creating more awareness regarding the moments which you pick, the places in which you pick, situations that might be triggering for you, then you are able to somehow anticipate the urge. And then once you're able to do this, it's like you were creating space between the urge and the picking itself. Whenever you have this space in between, then you're able to understand that there are different options and like you are able to do like different decisions or yeah, you're able to choose differently depending on what you need. And even if you decide to pick, then it's going to be something that you are consciously deciding to do. Or, for example, you say like, okay, no, I understand that I have more space between the urge and picking itself. So if I have much more possibilities, then let's try to experiment and use different ones. But the first step here is to creating awareness. That's the first step. So that should be all of the questions for now. As I said, like whenever you like if you have more questions, you can contact our customer support team at support@skinpick.com. Also, we have this promo code. So it gives you $100 discount for the first month. You just have to use the code webinar100. And yeah, that should be all. So it was really nice getting to talk to you today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Yes, take care.